Welcome back. You're here with the Goon Squad on WFAP. Here are your hosts, Hunter Hellenbrand and
Jacob Anderson. Today we're going to be talking about The Truman Show. Just a little background on what The Truman Show is. It's a TV show that has been this guy, Truman Burbank's entire life, from the moment he was born up until now. He doesn't know he's being filmed, but he's being filmed everywhere he goes with these tiny hidden cameras, and everyone else is in on it except for him.
So now that we've got some background on the show, we'd like to discuss a quote that occurred in The Truman Show by Christof, who is the creator of this world that Truman currently lives in. And can we actually pull up an example of that?
Christoph, let me ask you, why do you think that Truman has never come close to discovering the true nature of his world until now?
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
So hearing this quote, it really makes you think, like, what is the true reality that you live in?
Yeah, and one widely known example of how this quote might relate is Plato's story of the cave. The story is about these prisoners that are shackled up and locked up in a cave for years and years, and all they see is the shadows on the wall from the light that's at their backs. And then, after many years of being locked up, they get released, and they walk towards the light. But when the light hits their eyes, it's painful to them, so they turn back to the world they know. And it's just odd that after so many years of seeing the same thing, they would come right back to it as soon as they got the opportunity to see something else.
So this kind of goes right back to the Truman Show, because unlike these people that were locked up in the cave and they would be like too scared to go out into the world that they don't know, Truman was actually willing to go out into the new world because he's starting to notice some things in the world that he lived in that didn't really make sense. Like, there was the light falling from the sky, the rain that was just basically centered right on him instead of anywhere else. There was just a stream right on him. And then he started to hear this voice over the radio that was giving directions of where he was going. But one of the bigger experiences that he saw that really started to make him doubt the world that he lived in was he saw his dad again. And this was one of the more traumatic experiences in his life because he saw his dad die, and then now he saw him as a street bum. So he was really thrown for a loop on that one, and didn't really know what to do. He also started to notice people around the neighborhood on the loop. Like, every once in a while, they'd just come back and circle right around again. And he pointed that out to his wife, which she tried to just avoid and just say it was nothing. And then when he got back to his house, she started like giving him advertisements for this coffee and like kitchen utensils, and he just freaked out. And there's actually, here we go, there's a nice little example of this that we can bring up for you.
Why don't you let me fix you some of this new Mococo drink? All natural cocoa beans from the upper slopes of Mountain Nicaragua, no artificial sweeteners.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
After all these events are happening to Truman, he's just starting to realize that the world that he's living in is just staged, and he doesn't really get why, and he wants to do something about it. So he decides to go out on his own and take a little journey to make sure that he does what he can to just make the world right for him.
Yeah, so one night Truman goes missing, and they're like watching him on the cameras, and all of a sudden they don't see him anymore. So they send his best friend Marlon over to check on him, and when he gets there, he can't find him. So then they send the whole cast out on a search for him, and it's at night, like the dead of night, and they can't find him. So then they turn on the sun, and it's like 2 in the morning, and the sun comes on. And he had that accident with his dad when they went sailing, and his dad fell off and died. So ever since, Truman has been afraid of the water, so they don't even think to look in the water. But when they do, because they have nowhere else to look, they see Truman in a sailboat sailing away. So then, to try and stop him, they turn on the waves and the wind, and Truman's getting thrown around in this little boat, but he survives. And then he does something that's kind of odd. He talks to the cameras, and he said, "Is that all you got?" So he's talking to the cameras. So at this point, we realize that Truman knows he's being watched or something. And he's just trying to like get somewhere else, like somewhere out of his comfort zone. So then after a while, they give up trying to stop him, and then Truman's boat runs into the edge of his world. Like, there's just a screen there that has the sky. And then Christof starts talking to him and tries to convince him to stay, but Truman doesn't fall for it. He leaves and goes out into the real world.
The situation Truman underwent was about him being in a false world that he needed to escape from. Although this was a fictional story, here in the real world, there are also situations that basically rely off the same principles of being trapped in a false world. Like the first example that we came up with was being in Al-Qaeda. It's basically just this group of people that were all grown up and raised to think like terrorism was okay and that the U.S. is a bad place and that they need to be doing whatever they can to stop it, which isn't exactly the right thing to be doing, but that's in our minds. But in their minds, they believe that that's the right thing to be doing. So you can argue that their world is the false one or our world is the false one. Another one is like abusive relationships, like women that are in an abusive relationship that constantly get physically assaulted by their husband or spouse or family. They still continue to stay in it because they don't know what else is out there, and because this is the only world that they know, they think that everyone else will be like that, so they might as well just stick it out and just keep going with it rather than trying to move on and being in a place that's safer.
Alright, so there you have it. Those are our thoughts about what the real world is and what a false world might be. So you guys can send us your thoughts at 6 Goon Squad, call us or text us. We'll share some of your ideas tomorrow on the show. But that's all the time we have today.
So, in case we don't see you, good afternoon
Good evening.
and good night.